Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Today we've got a really special guest and a new regular episode we're going to be doing each month. So we welcome Anthony Sassano, who's one of the, heavily involved members in the Ethereum community, very active on social media and marketing and whatnot. So thanks so much for joining us today, Anthony, and you're an Australian as well, which is awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Alex. It's good to kind of meet a fellow Australian and be on kind of a podcast with a fellow Australian.
Yeah, and I guess the point of this episode was I really want to bridge the gap between those that are really heavily in the community and some of us that are more on the outside. And Ethereum's been so, technically focused and building a product. They haven't maybe done a lot of the marketing side of things, and a lot of that is changing now. But mainly because there's just so much happening in terms of development and DeFi, and it's hard to stay across, and there's so many newsletters. So hopefully this episode each month is going to let you know all the latest things that are happening, some of the best projects, and some unique insights from inside and outside of the community. So anything to add to that, Anthony?
Yeah, I guess I echo all your thoughts. It's become like almost impossible for someone who spends every day on it to keep up with everything that's happening. Like I wake up every morning and check Twitter and it's like, holy crap, like there's so much that's just happened. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, where should we start? I think lately there's been some really good pieces about is Ethereum money and the Ethereum price itself. Some good pieces about Ethereum being this economic bandwidth for this protocol. It's going to accrue value. So what are your thoughts around all that, and maybe how does it compare to Bitcoin in terms of that money as well?
Yeah, I guess it's something that for the last, few months, maybe a year or so, that some pockets of the Ethereum community have been like really, pushing and really bullish on. It's like, ETH is this economic asset within the Ethereum system. Like I guess like traditionally, maybe in the earlier days of Ethereum, there wasn't really that kind of crowd. It was more like this world computer, like Web3 narrative sort of thing. But since like we've had, we had the ICO boom, which to me was the first kind of example of DeFi. Like ICOs are DeFi at the end of the day. And then we had like Maker launch end of 2017. We had 2018 and 19, like this massive growth of DeFi relative to, like everything else happening within the space. And then I think from there, people were just like, okay, well, ETH is this kind of economic asset now, this economic bandwidth that is used to kind of power this whole ecosystem and collateral. Like it's used as collateral, it's used as money. People use it, like hoard it as like a store of value. It's starting to get those properties. So I think that's why we're seeing a lot more people kind of push that narrative and write a lot more about it. And it also, like, I guess as an, overall, it improves the security of the Ethereum network too. Like these networks could wholly depend on the kind of value of the asset. And, the more valuable the asset is, the more secure it is, at least for proof of work. There are other kind of, proof of stake and distributed proof of stake or different kind of mechanisms out there, which maybe, it could be argued that they don't rely on the price as much as proof of work does. But definitely the price, obviously plays a huge part with security. I guess like in a first order approach, but like the second order properties of, the more economic activity, the more interested people are in securing it, the more legitimate businesses build on top. And that just creates this whole ecosystem that secures, the chain even further.
Yeah, and I think I actually want to write a reply to Ryan Sean Adams that did that fantastic piece about whether or not Ethereum can keep its monetary premium as a bit of a rebuttal, because I think it's not a black or white thing. It's always grey. Is Ethereum money? Well, you can pay your bills in Australia with Living Room Satoshi with Ethereum. So if people are living off Ethereum, it's money to them. In terms of the price, I think it's probably a fair representation of that fear and uncertainty, particularly when we think about new money and institutional investors. They don't like uncertainty. And with this switch to proof of stake coming up, it's been pushed back a little bit. We're going to talk about plasma and some of the scaling that's now taken a slightly different direction. So I think that uncertainty is probably why Ethereum has underperformed Bitcoin recently. But now it's just starting to turn around a little bit. We've possibly bottomed on that Ethereum Bitcoin pair. And I think there's a bit of excitement and realization that DeFi is locking up a lot of ETH. It's surpassing that huge demand that was caused by ICOs. Then we've got insurance and gaming and all these other little areas that can blossom, and underlying all that is Ethereum. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. I guess I mean, DeFi is probably like the best narrative of Ethereum, or like the best kind of use case Ethereum could have asked for after the ICO boom. Because I'm not sure how much the market kind of like is in tune to the fundamentals of things. I believe that the crypto markets work off these long-term cycles, and the fundamentals are secondary to that.
Yeah.
I guess you could use 2016 as proof where, Ethereum ran up because of the DAO hype, and then the DAO hack happened, and then it went down. But then only 6 months later, after the hack happened, we had the biggest run in crypto's history,
Yeah.
right? And it seems that it doesn't matter what news comes out, bad or good, it doesn't seem to affect the price unless we're in that cycle. So if we're in a bull market, the good news will, be very pronounced, like we saw in early 2017. The Enterprise Ethereum Alliance was announced, and as soon as that was announced, like the price skyrocketed. But then really good things happened over the last 2 years for Ethereum, and the price didn't budge at all; it just kept going down. The same goes for Bitcoin. Same goes for like the wider markets. So I definitely think that fundamentals are a funny thing. Like fundamental investing is like a very long-term thing in these markets. But I do agree with you that maybe we're seeing the recovery with kind of ETH BTC now because of the fact that ETH2 is becoming, there's more certainty around it. It's getting a lot closer now. People are actually realizing, oh, this thing actually will happen kind of this year, like the first phase of it.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely kind of, I think that's playing into it. But at the same time, like the ETH BTC ratio seems to be on a 2-year cycle, and we're kind of like right on the cusp of that 2-year downtrend, like breaking. So
I couldn't agree more. It's so funny you say that, because I know you haven't watched a lot of our content or whatnot, and I'm really focused on those bigger cycles, and I'm a big believer that sentiment is ultimately what drives markets. And as you say, in a bull market, good news takes us up and bad news gets ignored. In that bear market, it's like bad news drives us down harder and good news just gets ignored. So it's definitely the sentiment that I feel is sort of switching, where we've had a few bad news items and it just gets shrugged off, and every time price goes up you're like, oh, is that going to get smacked down? And it just keeps going higher and higher at the moment. So definitely think that sentiment has swung, and that's probably the retail investors, the wider community, because we know that speculation is what drives markets at the moment. I think they're sort of coming round. They were told by all the influencers and the wider community that there's all these ETH killers and this, that and the other, and all of a sudden they're seeing, oh, hold on, there's 10,000 devs on Ethereum and all these projects and the DeFi, and some of these other chains still don't have functioning mainnets and smart contract platforms. And so that's that realization that, yeah, this is a leader.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other chains at this point are just like they're very far behind, and they also are being renamed to Ethereum attempted murderers instead of Ethereum killers, because so far, like all of them have failed to even put a dent in kind of Ethereum, and like EOS is the prime example of that, I think, where they raised so much money and they still haven't been able to kind of get any traction, like from what I can tell.
Yeah.
So it's definitely like playing, like all those things are playing positively into that sentiment shift. And I've noticed it too. I've noticed like people that I don't really see in the Ethereum community, especially a lot of YouTubers, like have just become like really bullish on Ethereum lately because of DeFi, because DeFi is just so relatable for people. It's like you can make 8% on your money in the DSR on Maker. You can do a no loss lottery with Pool Together. And it's just an endless thing that people can easily understand and relate to.
Yeah, and again, with this podcast, we're not here to bash other projects or whatnot, but I think it's just the stats and the facts at the moment that is the market leader, and all these projects that are building on top of it. So next up, let's talk about this switch to proof of stake. We interviewed the Rocket Pool guys the other day that are trying to do some decentralized stuff, but the 32 ETH, a lot of people want to get that amount. There are going to be options if you don't have that 32 ETH. But you touched on security before. Do you just want to talk about that transition and what it all looks like?
Yeah, so I guess proof of stake is one core component of the ETH2 transition. Obviously, the other one being sharding, which is the scalability aspect. So we're going to have, hopefully, giving dates is always dangerous with these sorts of things. But there was an ETH2 AMA yesterday where one of the researchers said that they expect maybe mid-2020 is when we're going to see the first phase of ETH2 rollout, which is called phase 0. And with that phase is just a proof of stake chain. So it's a new chain, still going to be like an Ethereum chain in name. It's like basically ETH2. That's what everyone's calling it. And that's just a staking chain. So what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to send your ETH over from the ETH1 chain to a smart contract on Ethereum that'll lock that ETH there. Effectively, it's like locked forever, or at least until maybe there's a bridge one day, but currently there's no bridge. But and then on ETH2, on the phase 0 chain, which is called the Beacon chain, you'll be issued this new Ethereum, it's not new Ethereum, it's just like the same Ethereum that you sent over essentially. And then you'll be able to stake with that on the chain. But then from there, at least for a little while, you won't be able to move that ETH out of that beacon chain. You won't be able to do anything. There's no smart contracts. It's literally just the proof of stake chain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for people at home, for beginners, we have the current Ethereum chain. That's going to become known as Ethereum 1 or 1.x or something like that, and it's still going to have upgrades to it. And then we're going to have this new chain altogether, as Anthony said. And at the moment, it's going to be a one-way bridge, and a lot of people are going to want to test this out. So they're going to send Ethereum, and just like we have wrapped Ethereum that makes Ethereum ERC20 compatible, this might be called Beth, like Beacon Ethereum or something like that. So that is actually going to take supply away from the first Ethereum chain, and we might see a bit of a premium or whatnot. Eventually, we might have a two-way bridge. And then there's talk about the original chain becoming a shard of the beacon chain, as we have the chain split into multiple little shards so that scaling can take place. Is that all correct?
Yeah, that's definitely a great breakdown of it. This stuff can get complex, like depending on how deep you want to go into it. There's like different names for everything. But in terms of the transition or like getting ETH1 into ETH2, there's kind of like a new proposal that Vitalik put out a few weeks ago that would speed up this process, where ETH1, shortly after, so there's phase 0, phase 1, and phase 2 of ETH2. And then Vitalik's like, why don't we have phase 1.5? That essentially means that we can bring ETH1 into ETH2 as its own shard. So it'll be shard 0, for example. And then we'll get rid of proof of work. And then ETH1 will be secured by proof of stake. Everything will still remain the same. It'll just be part of the ETH2 chain instead of a separate chain altogether. And that's the benefits for that are quite obvious, I think, and why that should be done like kind of ASAP. Because I think we definitely want to get off proof of work, like the Ethereum community, as soon as possible, for various reasons. Like, there's always debate about how much energy things use, but I'm not sure I fall into the camp that Bitcoin's destroying the planet with its energy use or anything like that. But yeah, I think the sooner we get it done with ETH2, the better for market confidence as well. Like, that's definitely a big piece.
And do you think, I've got a bit of this theory that around when the DAO hack happened and we hard forked that away, and then Barry Silbert and Poloniex, and this all sort of played out. And for those that don't know, Poloniex listed this Ethereum Classic, which everyone thought was the old fork that was dead, and then it had a price all of a sudden. Then him and Grayscale, they bought it up and launched this fund and whatnot. So all of a sudden we've got this other coin out there. I'm just wondering if we're going to see certain actors try and make a lot of noise and say, we want to stay on proof of work. Could we possibly see another hard fork, or do you think that's extremely unlikely?
Yeah, there is definitely talk about that, and I do see some people pushing the narrative that ETC is good for Ethereum because it acts as like a safe haven for miners to go. Once ETH1 has kind of been folded into ETH2, miners can just go to Ethereum Classic because it's got the same proof of work algorithm, right? The mining algorithm. I'm not sure how much I buy into that kind of narrative. It feels a bit weird because I haven't seen any indication that miners are going to be revolting against the move. There's actually even tangible proof we can point to, like miners stockpiling ETH over the last, little while. I think it's like the last few months in anticipation of proof of stake, because they're definitely going to be staking, right? Like they've been around for so long, they've got the infrastructure already in place for mining. It wouldn't be too hard for them to switch over. And then the hash rate as well for Ethereum is kind of stagnant because no one's going to invest like tons of money into Ethereum mining when they know it's going to be deprecated, right? So if we look at it, if we look at the evidence, I don't think there's going to be any kind of, revolt, or I don't think there's going to be a chain that gets birthed that actually results in something like Ethereum Classic 2.
So thinking about this from a game theory point of view, the Bitcoin miners have to outlay a lot of capital to get the ASICs and more energy intensive. From the Ethereum point of view, less capital. A lot of them are hoarding Ethereum, as we know, so it's in their best interest. They don't want to drive the price down or cause a crash and uncertainty. The more ETH they have, the more they can stake and they can earn the rewards. What are they going to do with that hardware side of things? What are the requirements for staking versus the proof of work mining? And do you think they're going to move just to other coins? And I actually think they could be a little bit bullish for ETC just in the short term until uncertainty is cleared up.
Yeah, I guess it may be. It depends what the miners are going to do. So they may just switch their mind. I mean, they're definitely going to switch their miners over to one of the other chains. Like I think there's a couple other smaller chains that use the same algorithm as well. But I definitely expect them to switch over to Ethereum Classic. But I don't know if that's bullish for the price, because that just means there's like a massive amount of hash power going to a chain, right? increasing the difficulty and forcing all the miners that were already on that chain to sell their ETC to cover their costs, because now they're mining at like a loss, or not as profitable as they were, because the difficulty has gone up. There's so much hash power that came to the system. So it's actually really hard to tell what's going to happen, because as you said, like it's all game. If you can model it out like from a game theory standpoint, but as far as I know, I think that the Ethereum miners are either hedging bets elsewhere, like maybe with futures contracts and things like that, or maybe they're investing in Bitcoin mining and they're doing a hybrid approach, and then eventually they'll just switch off their other miners or sell off their GPUs and everything like that. Because we don't, like, at the moment, it's assumed that the Ethereum mining is still on GPUs predominantly. There was talk about there's ASICs for Ethereum as well, but we don't know the exact numbers there. So it's actually probably too early to tell what's going to happen. I think we'll know more once ETH1, like we'll obviously know what's going to happen once ETH1's folded into ETH2. But until then, it's all speculation, I think.
Yeah, and definitely something we'll cover in future episodes, which is going to be cool as well. In terms of the ETH and the move to proof of stake and the monetary premium, I know everyone's really excited about the halving at the moment. I did a bit of a write-up recently about how the net inflation could actually be close to zero. So Ethereum moves to proof of stake. The people that are staking, they get a block reward, the same as we do currently. But the fees might be burnt. All the fees and the transactions and smart contracts might be burnt. So we do have new supply, but if we're burning those fees, the actual net inflation could be zero. So everyone's excited about Bitcoin going down to 2%, 4 years later 1%. Ethereum could actually be comparatively more scarce, which I think is pretty bullish, and I haven't heard many people talk about.
Yeah, I think it's just simply because people just don't understand Ethereum's monetary policy in general, because Bitcoin's is very easy to understand, where it's like, 29 million coins, halve every 4 years. Like, you can't beat that. It's very simple. Yeah. But with Ethereum, it's so far been like, for the past few years, the supply has actually gone down from 5 ETH per block to 3 ETH per block, and then 3 ETH per block to 2 ETH per block on the ETH1 chain. And then it's stayed there up until now, but it hasn't done so on a schedule or anything. It's just when the community says, okay, the price has gone up really high now, we're overpaying for security, and then everyone agrees, okay, now it's time to kind of like lower the issuance for now. And that's kind of like how it's been. It's like a community consensus thing. Now, I guess we won't go into debate about like, that whole process and everything like that, because people have like varying opinions there.
Yes.
But with ETH2, there's going to actually be like a kind of dynamic issuance rate, where depending on how much ETH is staked, that's how much issuance the network will have. Now, the estimations put it at, if you have 30 million ETH staked, and that's a high number. Like ideally, 30 million ETH is a really high number. Yeah. Like, it's not like other proof of stake networks where it's like delegated or baking in Tezos. Yeah. The Ethereum staking is like its own thing. It's very different. I won't go into the detail about like how it all works, but you could expect like anywhere from maybe 10 to 30 million max ETH staked.
Yeah. And just for people at home, what Anthony's talking about, we see in Tezos or Synthetics, some of these projects have 70, 80, 90% of the coins staked in there. Everyone's earning these rewards. Whereas with 100 million Ethereum supply, we're probably going to get maybe 10 to 30 maximum. You'd be thinking we're never going to get 90% of the Ethereum locked up and staking like we've seen in other chains.
Yeah, exactly. And especially because Ethereum can be used for other things like DeFi, right? It's all about where people want to park their ETH. So I guess from that perspective, we've got an actual little chart on our ETHUB page. So if you go to docs.ethub.io, you can actually see on there that there's an ETH2 economics section, and on there we have like a little table that says, okay, if 10 million ETH is staked, this is the percentage that will be paid out to the stakers in terms of rewards, which is about I don't know off the top of my head how much it was, but it's a healthy amount. But then the actual network issuance, overall issuance on that 110 million Ether supply is less than 1%. So the stakers will get paid, I think it's like 7 or 8% if 10 million is staked.
Yeah, we might cover that in more detail in a future episode, because I think it depends on network activity and fees and a few other things. But that yield's going to be pretty attractive compared to zero or negative interest rates in a bank anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely going to be more attractive than most things, like yield on your ETH at least, because traditionally we've seen in DeFi the yield on ETH is like extremely low right now.
Yeah, as it's become easier to do, maybe that's probably the next thing I want to get into. This is the world of DeFi. It also started with stable coins, and with all these projects, we don't really want ETH going from $1,000 to $100, dropping 90%. And that was really important. And then underlying that was DAI, and that's backed by Ethereum. So that, again, just something else that creates demand. So stablecoins did really allow a lot to blossom. Then we've got the world of trading. Again, people want their collateral to be stable. So we see a big demand for stablecoins. So that's why these interest rates came about. You've got to be careful because there's so many scams out there promising you interest rates as well. But yeah, that's really what saw DeFi flourish this year, don't you think? The huge demand for DAI and lifting that debt ceiling, it got easier for people to borrow and earn this interest rate, and it's gradually come down.
Yeah, exactly. Stablecoins have been a massive boon for Ethereum, DAI and USDC especially. Like they're the two biggest. There's a few other smaller ones, of course. I mean, Tether's bigger, but if we're talking about like, I guess like ones that are just on Ethereum, USDC and DAI, because Tether's like a multi-chain stablecoin.
Yes.
But then DAI is obviously a special case, because to create DAI, it's all done in this kind of decentralized way where you put up your ETH and create DAI, and then you can lend out this DAI. You don't even have to put up ETH. You can just buy DAI, lend it out, and make like 8% on your money with low risk, because it's through the maker system.
Yes.
So I definitely think that without stablecoins, we wouldn't have DeFi as we have it today. It's such a critical part of the whole space.
And it's got so much easier for people. A lot of people couldn't get their head around MetaMask, and now you can plug in your ledger to a lot of these websites. There's more centralized ones as well where you can send them your coins. So what are some of your favorites for people at home thinking, how can I earn this 8% that's been spoken about?
I guess the easiest way for people right now is to download the Argent mobile wallet app.
Yes.
They just integrated the Maker DAI savings rate, which is the 8%.
Yep.
That's literally just a few clicks and you're done. Like you can buy DAI within the app as well, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, so I've installed that. So that's Argent, ARGENT, for people at home to check out.
Yeah.
Cool. The other thing is probably DEXs, and everyone was sort of talking about DEXs a year or two ago, and people thinking, why would anyone ever trade there? There's not enough liquidity. But lately, we've seen some advances like liquidity pooling and even aggregators, like is it the 1inch exchange, where that's now aggregating from all the DEXs. So Uniswap's been a real leader this year. Kyber has got some exciting things coming up. So what are your thoughts around all the DEXs and how important they are to DeFi?
Yeah, I think they're critical to DeFi. We're seeing like this proliferation in DEX volume on because of those aggregators, especially like 1inch, Dex.ag. There's a few other ones out there now. 0x just announced their aggregation kind of engine. I think there's like two distinct decentralized exchange models. There's the traditional order book model that you see in centralized exchanges that has been ported over to Ethereum in the form of 0x. But those kind of things need scale. Like not a lot of DeFi to me doesn't actually need scale, but if you want to have like an order book based exchange, it needs to scale because people, trade a lot more frequently on there. Whereas with the aggregators or with Uniswap, it's just a swap based exchange. So you're literally just swapping, like with Uniswap, you're just swapping with a contract, with a liquidity pool.
Yeah.
And that doesn't need massive scale. And that's more for people who just want to get in and out of like, sell some ETH for DAI or buy some ETH with DAI.
And for people at home, what Uniswap, how it works is people provide liquidity. So they have their Ethereum pegged to the Maker token or a stable coin, for example. And then when people come along and trade, you get rewarded with fees. So there's quite an incentive for people to provide that liquidity. And every coin is pegged to Ethereum, and then we know the Ethereum price. So you can basically get a fairly accurate price for everything compared to the other earlier models where you're relying on an order book, someone to come up and put buys and sells and market makers, and that's kind of been phased out, which is really cool. And I don't think some people are aware that that's even how it works.
Yeah, exactly. Like some of this stuff is inherently complex. Like I know I probably don't do a great job of like explaining it. Like I love how you're explaining it to people. Like it's much better like that. I sometimes get ahead of myself.
No, that's kind of what the focus has been on the channel, is trying to dumb things down. Firstly, once I understand how it works technically, and dumb things down for everyone at home. And hopefully, we can continue to do that. Anything else taking your interest in the world of DeFi at the moment? Exciting projects? I guess for me, insurance is the really exciting part that even Vitalik has spoken about. People want the 8%, but they're scared about the smart contract, and now there's a way to ensure that.
Yeah, so like with insurance products like Nexus Mutual, you get to basically insure your other DeFi activities. That's as simple as I can explain it, which is really cool. But I guess the only drawback is that is actually still a smart contract on
Yeah,
Ethereum. So there's risk in the insurance contract.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there are drawbacks, but it's definitely something that I'm keeping an eye on because I think it's going to grow big as well. But like outside of DeFi, I could say that the privacy solutions that are coming online.
Mm.
I don't know if you've covered it before on your channel, but Tornado Cash is a really cool privacy implementation where it's like a mixer, so you could mix your ETH with other people's and then spit it out, and then anyone looking at the chain wouldn't be able to tell that that was your original ETH,
Yeah,
which is
yeah, we did a tutorial on that, and that was when it was in beta. So since then, I think they've added DAI and other ERC20 tokens. So yeah, you can basically generate a new Ethereum address, mix it up, send it to the new Ethereum address that no one knows, and then you sort of lose your trail on the public blockchain. In terms of scaling, let's get back to privacy, because privacy itself, the ZK technology has really taken over, and I want to ask you about Amisa Go and Plasma, because that's sort of fallen out of favor a bit. Some articles saying it's dead, some other articles saying it's still important, but it's probably sort of midterm thing rather than the immediate focus that it was in 2017. Is that right? Or?
Yeah. I guess like Plasma's had like a weird journey to where it's gotten today. There was a group that was focusing heavily on Plasma called Plasma Group. They announced that they're going to kind of pivot to what's called optimistic rollups, which is like an extension of Plasma. It's like an evolution, I guess you could call it, where we had all this research that happened in Plasma, and now there's this new technology that people have been like, oh, what if we take all the good parts of kind of all these other technologies and put them in here and call them optimistic rollups? Like, yeah. I won't go into detail about how it works, but it's essentially like a really, really interesting scaling solution that all the smartest people that I follow seem to be really excited about. And I don't, in terms of like Amisa Go and Plasma in general, I haven't kept up with what they're doing too much, but I'm not really sure on that
That's
side.
Right. I do want to have them on the channel because it's been funny since all this bad news came out. Price has just been on the tear from Amisa Go token, so there must be something still happening there. ZK Snarks is the other technology that's privacy focused, but also scaling massively, like everywhere between 500 transactions I've heard, or even higher, because of the way that works, and the ZK roll-ups as well, I've heard. So yeah, it's kind of exciting that all these little things we weren't sure what was going to be best, we've found some of the scaling solutions and they're already being implemented.
Yeah, exactly. It's all just been like a massive research kind of like project over the last like 2 to 3 years in terms of scaling, and both at layer 1 and layer 2, and now we're actually seeing a lot of the fruits of this labor come out in the form of actual tangible projects. So on the ZK side, Loopring actually brought out their implementation live on mainnet, and they're a decentralized exchange. So you can check it out there. And then we've got like Starkware's another company working on this, and they're going to be bringing out a decentralized exchange that uses this technology. So it's become like it's actually getting delivered now, which I think the market like definitely is pricing that in at this point, probably.
Yeah, and everyone saw in the news when CryptoKitties bloated the blockchain, but now we've got something like Gods Unchained that's doing hundreds of transactions and trades of these cards, and I'm not sure exactly what technology they're using, but they found something that scales and doesn't bloat the blockchain, and that is working.
Yeah, I think they've been a little bit tight-lipped about that, because I think they spent a lot of like time figuring out how to make the best use of the Ethereum blockchain, make sure they're using the block space efficiently. And that's why they were able to do those massive kind of card activations for Gods Unchained cards without actually clogging the network at all, it was crazy. And it's just like all these little things are just adding up, and people are learning how to use the blockchain better.
And you've got some little models in the background there, Anthony, but we've seen Engine, Gods Unchained. Are you pretty bullish on gaming and non-fungible tokens?
Yeah, I mean, previously, before I was kind of like in the crypto rabbit hole, I was a big gamer. So definitely very excited about crypto gaming, and especially collectibles, because, I mean, you can see behind me, I love to collect things. Yeah. So digital collectibles, I used to collect things inside games that I played, and, it was all centralized. I couldn't, really trade them or make money on them. The fact that I could potentially make money on some collectibles, on a free, open, worldwide market is just incredibly exciting.
Yeah, someone sent me a super rare for my birthday a few months ago, and then I was reading that some of these super rares have gone up to thousands of dollars, and I was thinking, I still haven't even checked. I hope it's one of mine that's gone up. But anything else that we haven't touched on today? I know in future episodes I want to talk a lot about governance and DAOs. There's a lot of interesting things happen there. Enterprise Ethereum Alliance and that adoption from corporate world. Any other topics that you want to talk about in future, and we'll definitely get people to request what they want us to talk about in the comments as well.
Yeah, I guess like in general, there's just, I mean, we could talk about anything really. Like, there's so much happening, but like, I guess we can save a lot of it for future episodes. But I think I did want to just quickly mention that, you know, I think 2020 is going to be a very, very good year for ETH2. There's a few different places you can keep on top of ETH2. There's like the Week in Ethereum newsletter from Evan Van Ness. We put out a newsletter at ETH Hub as well that you can keep up to date. But I think keeping your finger on the pulse of what's happening with ETH2 is going to be very important this year. You know, both from like I guess if you're really interested in this stuff on the technology side, it's really cool. But also if you're an investor, just keeping up to date on like what's happening could, you know, could be very, very healthy.
Yeah, and that probably brings us to the final thing I want to talk about, which is something you're working on as well, and that's the set token. So we do have a lot of our audience that are traders or longer term investors, but what we've now, I guess, invented are these ERC20 tokens where you can program a strategy. So you can say, I only want to be buying and in the market when we've had a golden cross, and then I want to sell if there's a death cross, or I want to buy when it's outside the Bollinger Bands and sell once it gets above the Bollinger Band. So it's very, very cool stuff, and this is being done in a sort of decentralized fashion. You can follow along your favorite traders and strategies. So yeah, talk to us about sets.
Yeah. So I guess my day job is so my official title is product marketing manager at Set Protocol. So we're a kind of like decentralized asset management protocol. You can go check us out at tokensets.com. That's like our front end interface. And I think you explained it well. It's basically a way for people to buy into different strategies. And these strategies are represented as ERC20 tokens, and you can, send them to your ledger and just keep them there. And then what happens is these strategies, like these tokens, are tied to a strategy that automatically kind of rebalances. So, say you want to follow the 20-day moving average of ETH and you don't want to actively trade it yourself, you can buy into what we call a set, which is the ERC20 token, sit on it, and then the actual smart contracts will automatically rebalance every time there's like a cross under the 20-day moving average or a cross above. And then you'll get exposure to that strategy just automatically.
Yeah, and some of the cooler newer ones I've seen have incorporated the DAI savings rate, that interest rate. So when Ethereum's going up, you're in Ethereum and you're making money. Once you cash out back to a stable coin, if the protocol thinks it's going to go down, you sit in the stable coin and earn that 8% interest annually or whatever it is. And these are all things that you can buy and then store on your ledger. So yeah, I think it's really exciting. And it's just probably a glimpse into the world of finance and automated strategies that we see from Wall Street and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I like to think of it as like a one-click kind of, follow strategy where, we have actual traders on the platform now as well. So, if you see your favorite trader on there and you're like, oh, I want to follow their strategy, I want them to do the trading for me, but I don't want to give them my money. That's the key difference here. It's like when you buy into these strategies, the traders actually don't have any access to your funds, but they can still trigger trades and you can still follow their strategy like that. So I like to think of it like when you see yourself and other kind of people doing trading strategies, your followers can easily just buy in without having to follow manually themselves.
Yeah, I think it's very exciting. I'm probably going to do a tutorial on it at some stage, but just the cogs are turning about what's possible, and you and I haven't sat down and actually had a deep dive into it because we're going to try and think of what I think is the best strategy with some of the indicators I've been working on and everything. And that's very cool for people to be able to know that their ledger is doing the work for them and selling when it needs to be selling and whatnot. So, yeah, I think that's been an awesome episode, Anthony. Anything final words for people at home?
I guess I mentioned keep on top of ETH2 this year. It's going to be really exciting. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can. I'm very active there, so at Sassel0x.
Yep.
Alex will link it in the description. And then I guess you can follow along with ETH Hub as well, and my work at Set Protocol too. But yeah, we'll be doing these monthly anyway, so it'd be really cool to revisit each month and see what's happened in the previous month, because as we were talking about, there's just so much that happens that we're going to have so much to talk about.
Absolutely. So I hope you guys have enjoyed that. Really open to requests and topics for what you want to talk about. Hopefully this has brought in a few new members from all different communities that are interested in Ethereum, and let's do it again next month. So thanks, guys. Cheers.
Awesome. Thanks.